This is the Sales Babble Podcast, episode 468, The Peril of Overconfidence When Selling.
Welcome to Sales Babble, the podcast that shares selling secrets for non-sellers. And now your host, Pat Helmers.
Hello, Sales Babblers. This is Pat Helmers, and this is the podcast that babbles against fast-talking and aggressive selling. Instead, it embraces the effortless action and Taoist style of non-pushy sales. I believe that the best kind of selling is when the buyer sells themselves, and when the deal's done, the buyer says they did it. Now, have you ever let your ego get ahead of your success? Like that day that you boasted you can eat anything, you agreed to accept the habanero pepper challenge, but quickly found that they were too hot to handle, burning your mouth and throat, and then you spent the next hour drinking buckets of water to soothe the pain. We've all been there, right? Well, maybe you haven't, but I have been. And I've also let this kind of overconfidence screw up business too. How to avoid overconfidence when selling? That's the topic for today. But before we start, make sure and subscribe to the podcast on whatever app that you're listening to, and also follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and myself on LinkedIn. You can find links in the show notes. And now today's chapter, The Peril of Overconfidence. Winning can be just as bad as losing. Confidence can be as bad as fear. What does that mean? If your sales are down, the only way is up. But if you're up, the only way is down. Don't worry about your quota. Just do what you have to do. The cocky seller is their own worst competitor. Fear can cause hesitation, but confidence can create chaos. When you know your limits, nothing can hold you back. Do what you can, then let go. And now today's story. It took a while, but Chris found success. Each new deal fostered confidence, and confidence fostered boasting until the day arrived when business slumped. The slump prompted Pat to ask, "Hey, what's up with your pipeline? It's drying up." Exasperated, Chris moaned, "I can't explain it. I was on top. Everything was working. And then it was a train wreck." Pat responded, "But you've been telling me you're the best seller in the organization, right?" Sheepishly, Chris muttered, "Yes, I did." Pat went on, "My toughest competitor was often my own arrogance. Overconfidence led to many lost deals. It wasn't until I honestly assessed my strengths and weaknesses was I able to repeatedly find success. Now I pitch with humility, and if the deal makes sense, the prospects buy. That's all I can do is to do my job and accept what happens." The theologian Thomas Merton once wrote, "Pride makes us artificial, and humility makes us real." Our current culture glorifies the celebrity that boasts how great they are, and although it's true that every dog has its day, it's not every day, and that day has an expiration date. Don't you know that success comes and goes like the seasons? So it's best to keep your ego in check and truly know who you are. In the end, it all works out. That's for certain. To download a copy of this week's chapter of the Tao of Sales Babble, you can find it in the show notes at www.salesbabble.com. And while you're there, you can sign up for our brief weekly newsletter with links to the podcast conveniently sent to your inbox each week. I promise I won't spam you. Did you get a chance to listen to last week's ChatGPT discussion on using artificial intelligence when selling? There was nothing artificial about that discussion. Check it out. It's a topic as hot as habanero peppers. Next, if you could do me a favor and share this episode with a friend who's interested in growing their selling skills, please do. On whatever app that you're using, subscribe to Sales Babble and share this episode with your friend, because word of mouth is the premier way of growing listeners. I don't know if you knew this, but podcasting, which is what you're listening to right now, is the easiest way of turning your executives into thought leaders. You do this with content that reaches your ideal clients. You may not think it's possible, but it's something that you can do. Learn more about Habanero Media, my podcasting agency for B2B brands. Why not let me help you start a podcast that will accelerate your sales today? Go to habaneromedia.net and let's talk about what you can do to stand out from the competition. Lastly, if you have any questions about sales or podcasting, don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me on LinkedIn or click the Babble Me link on the website. With that said, that's all I've got for this week. Until next Tuesday, take care and have a highly successful and a profitable selling day.
Thank you for listening to the Sales Babble podcast. Find us at www.salesbabble.com.
This is a production of Habanero Media.